Is Donald Trump alone the US president, or does he have a co-president in Elon Musk? Ask South Africa. They are on Musk's hit list and by extension, Trump's. This has led to a diplomatic spat between the US and South Africa, and it threatens to derail global cooperation. It threatens to undermine the G20. Let's tell you how it began. With another social media post by President Trump, he paused aid to South Africa and launched an investigation, a probe into land confiscations in South Africa. Trump says, and I'm quoting, they're treating certain classes of people very badly. Listen to this.
Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land, and actually they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that.
Yesterday, the US upped the ante. Their foreign minister weighed in. Secretary of State Marco Rubio put up this message. He said he would not attend the G20 summit in Johannesburg this month. It is scheduled for the 20th and 21st of February, but Rubio says he won't go. He parroted Trump's accusations, saying, and I quote, South Africa is doing very bad things, like expropriating private property and using the G20 to promote DEI. DEI is diversity, equity and inclusion. Donald Trump hates it, so does his Republican Party. They don't care for diversity. They say it is inefficient. So part of Rubio's boycott is because of that. He also took a jibe at climate change. Again, Trump and his team are climate change deniers. They think global warming is a hoax. So they think sustainability initiatives are a waste of time. And Rubio fired a parting shot. He said, and I quote, my job is to advance America's national interests, not waste taxpayer money or coddle anti-Americanism. Under Trump, DEI and climate change initiatives are a waste and apparently anti-American. I won't get into that argument here. But let's focus on the US reaction. Rubio is ditching the G20 summit altogether. South Africa is the chair this year. They hold the G20 presidency until November this year. The main summit will take place in November. This month's meeting is for G20 foreign ministers, and Rubio's absence is not really a big deal. There's a long time to go for the main summit, and knowing Trump, the political climate may change by then. So it's not like he's ditching the G20, not yet. But the statement about it being a waste of taxpayer money is quite interesting. The G20, remember, was formed in 1999, a grouping of the world's 20 biggest economies. For years, it was a toothless group. Then came the 2008 financial crisis. That's when the G20 really started to matter. It was a forum for the world's biggest economies, a place where they could work together. But since the crisis ended, the G20 hasn't really had the same sort of impact, barring a few incidents. Ideas are proposed, tall promises are made, but without a crisis to deal with, it's mostly a talk shop. So you could say that it is a waste of taxpayer money. That being said, what is the alternative? Should we just stop international coordination altogether? Should it be every country for itself? That doesn't work in the globalized economy. The 2008 crisis was caused by US banks being reckless. It hurt the entire world. That's why the G20 gained prominence in the first place. If you want to do away with some of the extra events, that is fine. I suppose foreign ministers can just have a big Zoom meeting. But the G20 itself, the spirit of cooperation, that should not be allowed to fizzle away, especially for what seems to be South Africa's internal issue. Let's take a closer look at the US-South Africa spat. Beyond the DEI and the climate excuses, the heart of the matter seems to be land. As you know, South Africa is a former colony. The British were there and the Dutch before them. They oppressed the local population. They put racist laws in place, typical colonial exploitation, the after effects of which are still very much evident. Look at this land distribution chart. White South Africans make up about 7% of the country's population. But even in 2022, almost 3 decades after the end of apartheid, they owned over 78% of all the farmland. White South Africans own about half of all the land in the country and 78% of the farmland, and they make up just 7% of the population. How is this still possible or acceptable? It's because land distribution is a contentious issue in South Africa. They have struggled to find a way to redistribute land for years. Last month, they brought a new law. A law that allows the South African government to seize land, that too without compensation. It's not some blanket permission though. It's only under exceptional circumstances. South Africa's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, tried to explain this. He insisted that no land has been seized yet. But that doesn't matter. This new law has still outraged the US. Now you might wonder, why does Washington care about this? Why does Trump? Well, he might not. But one top advisor certainly does, and that is Elon Musk. Musk was born in Apartheid South Africa. His father still lives there, and he's very interested in what happens to land there. Musk responded to Ramaphosa's first explanation. He called South Africa's laws openly racist. Now, considering the history, there's a lot of irony in that. But anyway, Ramaphosa realized that he needed to talk to Musk. The South African president arranged a call, then put up a post. Perhaps Ramaphosa thought that his outreach had worked. But it hasn't. When Rubio pulled out of the G20 summit, Musk was there to back him. The billionaire replied with 2 US flag emojis. Clearly, President Ramaphosa's outreach was a failure. Musk will continue to back actions against South Africa, probably until Ramaphosa scraps the law. Until then, expect funding cuts and snubs. Or to quote Trump, perhaps far worse than that. We're calling the show Vantage. We hope you like what we put together for you. Touted as the minimum defense from that video. India's neighbors were the first to send the special edition of Vantage live from the White House throughout this week. Yes, Hindu Mandir we're on our way to Tel Aviv. Pretty measure, but it's also the perfect way to drive.
I don't think that
Prime Minister of Bhutan, Cyril Ramaphosa. Welcome to
60% of the world's
office. Prime Minister Modi did the iron.
we were actually
How are you doing? How do you like? It's been 1 year since that meeting. Iron bars separate you from the outside. Out the vote effort. Trump had, it says, and at $4.3 trillion. 4.3 300 billion by 2030. That's what we need to tackle climate change.